Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the grand finals of the Urban Terror Nation Cup 18. We've come a long way, but Hungary has taken the win over Brazil, making them the third place winner and only leaving us now with the two last nations standing to battle it out for the glory of being the champion of the Urban Terror Nation Cup 18. We still have France and Portugal alive in this knockout stage of the playoffs, and France are the current reigning champion for now 2 years in a row, and hoping of course to make this their third. And they've been really strong since the playoffs of the 11th Nation Cup and getting their first gold here in the 13th. There was a little bit of a slump here in the 15th one, but everything was ironed out, and the next year they haven't lost any tournaments since. So playing for France, we have quite literally the best of the best. All of these players have at least been playing in Division 1, and they are mostly playing for just the very best teams out there. And even just their names alone should be more than enough for you to recognize them. They're also good really that the death ratio is positive on them all. That really says a lot. And first of all, we have Hemp, and I really do not know how to explain to you just how amazing this guy is. And I in some ways really envy him, because if you look at his YouTube channel, it looks very much like no matter what game he plays, he just is consistently amazing at it. Be it Overwatch, be it Counter-Strike or Urban Terror, or be it something like Rocket League, he still pulls off the most amazing stuff anyway. And also, of course, playing for great teams, and also just being not only good in other games, but very much being a really well-known player of Urban Terror. And we also have Zombie, being the leader and also playing for the well-known team of Ace, who have gained gold in all game modes possible. And Babu, the only new addition really this year, and also a great one at that. He very much does a massive bulk here of the work. Actually, he has the highest kill to death ratio on the team, with having a 1.53. That is one of the highest I think I've seen when looking at this. This might possibly actually be the highest there is. So and then we also have Holtzes playing here for various artists who are in the top 3 in Team Survivor and have also gained gold and captured the flag before. And finally, also a name you should recognize with Clad, playing for France since the 15th Nation Cup, making this his 4th season. And up against them we have Portugal. Very much with France we have the new, and with Portugal we have the champions of old, and also the ones with the most amounts of achievements under the belt. 6 times gotten gold, and they also have 3 times gotten bronze. But the 3 times though getting bronze are also the recent ones alone. And with Mortal now also leaving the last season, no one is really left from back then. So this is very much a completely new team for Portugal, trying to see if they can regain the glory here from the olden days and of the initial seasons here of the Nation Cup. And they have gotten all the way now to the final, so they very much seem possible to actually get back onto the throne. So playing for Portugal we have first of all Rafi, being the only player that is not new, having already played the last season, and also outside of the Nation Cup he plays for Area Esport, which has a really impressive history in the Urban Zone leagues. And then also we have Nasri and Adrix playing, both of them for 7 Deadly Sins, who have gained gold in Team Survivor and also doing really well in the first division of Capture the Flag. Finally, we also have for Portugal, Avenger and Rival, both of them playing here for Fanatics at the time, and Rival also being called the greatest Capture the Flag player of all time by Shady. So very much great players here also for Portugal, and they have done really well, so it also seems to be working really well out for them. And both teams are very confident going into this series. Both teams really just picking the strongest map that they have, and not in any way to figuring out exactly what to counterpick against the opponent in this best of 3. We're going to start here with a Capture the Flag on Algiers, as you might imagine being the map of choice of France. We prefer to play on Capture the Flag, mainly also just due to the fact that most of the teams are not that good on it, compared at least to France. There are some teams that also seem capable to do Capture the Flag, but they still are not even at the level of France. And Algiers specifically has also been played by France throughout this whole season, and they've done really well on it too. Really only USA trying to get close, or at least trying to. They didn't really get that very close, despite of them being really good at Capture the Flag. Then second, we are going to have the map of choice of Portugal, of course, being Orbital. And they already played this map against Belgium in the group, and also against Brazil, in the semi-finals. And it went really well for them both times, ending in a score that is 14-8-ish. And should we have a draw, which I really do hope we're going to get, it's going to end in that bomb on Dust 2. The default third map, and not something that you should be moaning about, because France has shown us before that they are very, very good on this map and actually try to see if they can play bomb mode and not just play Team Survivor, as we saw last season when France played against Italy. They did some really interesting stuff that is you're only going to do because of you're playing bomb mode. So very much France up to the task of playing Dust 2, and I would expect the same from Portugal too. So let's look specifically on the first map here in the series, which was Algiers. It's really just together with Abbey, the classic Capture the Flag map, and in my opinion also the most amazing Capture the Flag map. So on this map, the most important thing here to notice is the camel corner and the central building. Those two areas being the most important parts of the map, because the capture routes directly from one flag to the other are the shortest through here, but also simultaneously you only have to be worried about one angle of being killed by the opponent. Whereas if you're going through the road, you will have to be worried about players from the central building, the camel corner, the balconies, the square, a lot of places. So because of this, these are some of the most important parts of the map. But all the other parts of the map are not just unimportant. Very much they have an indirect impact on exactly how much control you have of these two areas. Especially something like the square and the balconies. Because the balcony is the one area that is making you have a really strong defense. Especially on something like the blue side. If you have played this map, or been a player on the red side on the camel corner, you know how irritating the one guy on the balcony is. So very much these outer skirts areas are very important for the defense in a lot of ways. And which is also why you usually can see the use of smokes on this map, which is unusual normally for urban terror. The classic example would be having a smoke from the camel corner onto that balcony of the blue side, because just that balcony is so small that the smoke can actually cover it all and cut it off. And with that, you only have to worry about players from the fountain instead, so you can push further out and actually push out without having to be just mowed down by that one guy on the balcony. But we also have seen France last time against USA be having a much different focus, especially also with the smokes. We saw them with the smokes when they were playing on the wet side to not throw the smoke onto the balcony. Actually, on the contrary, they did not care about the balcony with the smokes. Instead, they had two smokes almost consistently onto the slope and the big opening gap from the fountain area of the blue defenders, leaving the only area of that they can actually see the flag if they do not want to use night vision goggles to be the balcony itself. But France then, interestingly enough, choose to have two players going through the square instead of having only one player flanking through the square. And then with these two players keep on pushing hard onto the balcony and very much have control of the balcony more than USA had in the end. And very much that was the biggest problem that USA had, those smokes and not having control of the balcony at all. So also we had just France. Now that we have France, of course we're going to have to talk about how they went and played this differently before, because when they played on the blue side also, they didn't just switch back to what was usual. They had like 3 players or 2 players onto the road instead. Again, only 1 player on the camel corner, and instead having 2 players on the road, very much trying to build up a crossfire, and simultaneously also have another player onto the balcony of the opponents simultaneously. Very much not giving USA at that time any possibility to move out and gain some angle that they can hold their own flag on. And even when they tried to go out, they always were caught in some kind of crossfire, because the player on the road can be reinforce the camel corner player. When someone is pushing right onto the flag, the road player can also, or the road players, can actually also support the player on the balcony in a crossfire. So very much an interesting setup, and it very much also worked really, really well for France. So I would expect this one, as it has been for France the rest of this tournament, to be a win. It may be Portugal can be stronger than the others, so it might not end as badly as it might have done for USA, but USA is already really good. But maybe we can hope for Portugal to be a little bit better, but I don't think they'd be fully on par with France. So Portugal very much would have, if they're not going to at least make me completely look stupid here, but they would have to win on the second map, their own home map being Orbital here, which is one of the 2 third-party maps which are played in competitive Team Survivor. And it's also played for a really good reason, because it's a really interesting map in a lot of ways. So you can compare it to something like Turnpike. We have a map which has 2 outer paths. We have the corridor and the biosphere. But then we also have a middle connecting these two, very much like the office on Turnpike. But the one big difference here about the middle is that the middle itself is already split very much in electrical and infirmary. So it's already in some way split in 2. And also the middle is very, very heavily connected to the outer paths. So if you want to take control of something like electrical, you also have to try and take control of corridor simultaneously, or you're going to be flanked and be caught in a crossfire from someone pushing in from both the corridor and from possibly infirmary, or maybe also just from the spatial dock. So that's very so you cannot just take the middle and not care about the other parts, unlike what you have on Turnpike. But also just the middle is so very convoluted that you have a lot of good possibilities, I think, to do some lurking kind of a place, or just to use it to your advantage in some clutch situations. But also, not only is the middle interesting, but also there's some very important, minor but important levels of terrain here. These changes only really impact the SRA players, because usually when we see some map like Casa, where we have an SRA player onto the market, they can be a really big nuisance and shut down a big push through alley timbers. But with the level terrain done here on Orbital, they very much make it possible for you to use this level of terrain to your own advantage, where you then can stay hidden from this XVIII player until you're actually up close, so that it is much more of a fair fight, and also in some ways a little bit more favoring the close quarter player, the one with the automatic weapons. So this map is much more to Portugal's liking, I would say, and it should also be much closer. I'm not completely sure how it would go. I'm a little bit more 50-50 on this. France, I would still give the edge, but I would really hope for Portugal to take this one home so that we can get the third map, because if something is good, it is a full best of 3, in my opinion, especially when we have the grand finals. So let's talk about the third map, being here Dust 2, the second version of it. It's really just the classic bomb mode map, ported here from Counter-Strike, as you all know, but with minor changes to accommodate the faster movement of and just nature of urban terror itself. So one thing here to note, especially on Dust 2, especially since bomb mode is asymmetric, is that map control itself is given at the start of the round to the red team, since they spawn directly looking down on the middle. So with an XVIII you can get an early pick, you can get intel through the middle doors, and you also, with having the middle, you have the initiative to move around and also gather intel, get picks possibly, and also finally figure out exactly where to push and split, possibly even onto the 2 bomb sites. Because if you have the middle, you could do a split. There's the B split, there's the A split. You all should know them, of course. So then the question is exactly how are the 2 bomb sites? Well, the black bomb site is the easier one to hold, so there's some good on that one. I mean, you can put a smoke on the double doors or just on the window, and it will block off any attempt to move in for a retake, at least for a short time. But also, the one thing about the black bomb site is it is also much harder to take, because one XVIII player can just hold down on the upper dark, or you can just throw a smoke in onto the tunnel, and it will mostly just shut down any move onto the bomb site itself. And so with 2 smokes on the player, you can very much just have one singular defender on the B bomb site, hold off any attempt, to, at first at least, to take the bomb site. The bomb site? No, the black bomb site. There we go. But that does mean if you only have to have 1 player on the black bomb site, you have 1 extra player you can commit to either have a crossfire on the middle, or you can have 2 players at the very far down on the long A, but simultaneously also have someone looking at short. So very much you can have a lot of interesting possibilities to play on the black bomb side, which has an effect on the red bomb side itself. And the red bomb side, on the other hand, is easier to take because we have the long A possibility, and also going in from catwalk and through short. So it's easier, and it's also much more common to do an A split without and because there's several more angles, it's not as difficult to go up against the XVIII player, though one XVIII player down at the slope possibly or behind the corner can shut down quite a bit of a rush from short. But yet, with the speed of Urban Terror, you might lose 1 player, but you should be able to get the rest of them in before the XVIII player is going to be able to get further. So, planting positions though on red bomb side is interesting because in Urban Terror, as you all know, there's only 1 specific position to plant the bomb, and the position that is specified on the red bomb side is only for long A itself. So if you put all 5 players to push in from short, you cannot just keep on using only control of short. You have to gain control of long A if you actually want to hold the bomb afterwards and not have to retake the bomb site when they're beginning to defuse. So at some point you will have to try and take control of long A. You can't do it, of course, wide when you have one player already planting the bomb and just have the rest of them rush down to long A to the one player or two players still there. So, as I've said already, France has shown when they played against Italy last season on Dust 2 that they very much put their thoughts into the bomb mode and the map itself. So very much, if we're actually going to get to this one, it's going to be a really interesting match just to watch, just because of the strategies and tactics put up, and of course obviously also just because of the plays of these two teams. France will be showing up with something amazing plays, and Portugal certainly too. And I would also expect Portugal to also not just play this like Team Survivor, because that doesn't work, as we've seen Italy failing with last season. So my prediction is that while Portugal has a lot of good players, I would still give this one to France. They played each other already in the group stage last season, where it was first Team Survivor on Prague, which did go in France's favor on a 9-16, and then a capture the flag on Algiers with a 5-16. And the map picks are quite similar. Of course we have Algiers again, but also Prague and Orbital. Well, they are probably very different in design, but still it's Team Survivor, and it still was a 9-16 even there. So it might end in a 2-0 just like that one, but I would really certainly hope for a 2-1 to France. So stay tuned for the match alone. Now that we've talked about the players, the maps and everything, there's nothing holding us back to just only watch gameplay. So the next is uninterrupted gameplay with no shenanigans about maps, and I do hope that you're looking forward to it. Stay tuned.